The Sandby Massacre. Between 450 and 550 AD, a brutal massacre happened at the Sandby ring fort in Öland, Sweden. Archaeologists began digging the site after scans in 2010 revealed signs of old looting and buried jewelry. Almost immediately, they uncovered evidence of extreme violence. People and animals were killed inside their homes, and the buildings were later burned. Only around 10% of the site has been excavated, yet 26 bodies have already been found. With 50 houses still mostly untouched, the death toll could reach hundreds. One man appears to have been wounded in the street before fleeing into a house, where he was chased down and killed with a blow to the head. Most victims seem to have been executed the same way, from behind. There are almost no signs of resistance, making the attack feel sudden and overwhelming rather than a battle. Archaeologists know women lived there, but only one confirmed female skeleton has been identified. Some believe the rest was taken captive, though this theory raises questions since the men appear to have been caught completely off guard without defensive wounds. The bodies, including infants, were never buried and remained exactly where they fell for over 1,500 years. The fort was also abandoned permanently, suggesting the site became feared or taboo. Despite this, valuables like gold, silver and Roman coins were left behind, showing robbery wasn't the motive either. There are no historical records explaining the attack. Some suspect a political conflict, because the assault came from inland rather than the sea. The settlement also had trade connections to the Romans, but their empire was coming to an end by then. Even stranger evidence shows people visited the site for centuries afterward, maybe treating it as a pilgrimage location despite the unburied dead and untouched treasures. The mystery remains: who did this and why did people return to the site without resettling it? The English sweating sickness was a highly deadly epidemic that struck England and parts of Europe in 5 waves between 1485 and 1551. It was known for its extreme ferocity and a mortality rate of 50%. Symptoms included intense fear, headaches, chills, body pain, and heavy sweating, with many dying within 24 hours of onset. The first outbreak alone caused around 15,000 deaths in England, and total fatalities across all waves are estimated at around 35k. Doctors at the time were baffled due to limited medical knowledge. The illness appeared suddenly, spread rapidly, then disappeared for years before returning, often in summer. It seemed to affect clergy and the upper classes more often. One explanation is that wealthier homes and monasteries stored large amounts of food, attracting rodents and fleas that could spread disease. The sickness vanished after 1551 and was never seen again. Modern researchers suspect it may have been an early form of hantavirus. However, no definitive cause has ever been proven. Göbekli Tepe is a 12,000-year-old archaeological site in southeastern Turkey, discovered in 1994. It lies buried under the Anatolian Plateau. The site predates agriculture and writing, challenging the idea that complex structures only appeared after farming societies developed. It suggests that hunter-gatherers were capable of organizing large-scale construction far earlier than previously believed. The site contains at least 20 huge circular enclosures made of large T-shaped limestone pillars, some 6 meters tall and weighing over 50 tons, decorated with detailed carvings of animals and abstract symbols. The purpose of the site remains unknown. It's often described as the world's first temple, but some evidence of domestic tools and structures suggests it may have been used as an early settlement. One of its biggest mysteries is that around 8000 BC, the entire complex was intentionally buried under thousands of tons of stone and soil. No one knows why. The site has also led to alternative theories about lost civilizations. Roopkund Lake is a remote glacial lake in the Himalayas. It contains the skeletal remains of an estimated 600 to 800 people. For decades, researchers have tried to explain how so many bodies ended up there. DNA analysis identified at least 3 distinct genetic groups, one from South Asia, 2 from the Mediterranean region. Carbon dating shows they didn't all die at the same time, some around 800 AD and others as late as 1800. The site shows no connection to major trade routes, making it unclear why different groups from different eras reached this lake 16,500 feet above sea level. There's also no evidence of disease. Many skeletons show signs of blunt force trauma, suggesting sudden violent weather, possibly extreme hailstorms, may have played a role. There's still no clear explanation for why so many different people ended up there and how they died. The Havana Syndrome. In late 2016, a CIA officer walked into the American Embassy's health office in Havana, complaining of sudden nausea, dizziness, and a splitting headache. Days later, more officers reported the exact same symptoms. By the end of 2018, over 24 American diplomats and officials were affected. Many victims described hearing a strange noise right before the symptoms hit, a high-pitched grinding or piercing sound. Some compared it to marbles rolling inside a metal funnel. The attacks seemed to target people inside their own homes or hotel rooms. Victims suffered concussion-like brain injuries, hearing loss, nosebleeds, and vertigo, with no signs of physical trauma. Some still struggle with long-term effects today. The condition was later also reported among US personnel and their families in multiple countries, including China, Austria, Switzerland, the UK, and elsewhere. Around 1,500 US officials have been affected. Scientists are divided. Some suggest directed microwave or radio frequency energy as the most likely cause. Other reports mentioned pulsed electromagnetic energy that could pass through walls. Yet some intelligence assessments blame mass stress and pre-existing conditions instead. To this day, no one has been held responsible and the true cause remains unknown. Some mysteries stay unsolved, but when it comes to what's happening with your private data online, you don't have to stay in the dark. That's where Surfshark comes in. Surfshark is a cybersecurity company that effortlessly secures your online privacy. Most people use public Wi-Fi without thinking twice, but a huge proportion of these networks lack sufficient encryption, meaning anyone on that network can potentially see your data, including your passwords and what you do online. I use Surfshark whenever I'm traveling or connected to public Wi-Fi, because it keeps my online activity private and safe. Another thing I like is that websites can sometimes show different prices depending on where you are, but Surfshark lets you change your virtual location and find the best deals. One extra feature I found really useful is Surfshark Alert. It monitors whether your personal information, like credit cards, has been leaked, and its malware detection alerts you if your device is compromised. And best of all, one account secures unlimited devices. If you want to try it yourself, click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Go to surfshark.com/Brofessor or use code Brofessor at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Plus, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee so you can try it risk-free. The Bronze Age collapse was a period of sudden destruction between 1200 and 1150 BC, when powerful civilizations across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East, like the Mycenaeans, Hittites, Minoans, and Babylonians, rapidly fell apart. The exact cause remains one of history's biggest mysteries, because no single explanation fully accounts for the scale of the collapse. Most historians now see it as a chain reaction caused by multiple disasters happening at once. Evidence points to long-lasting droughts and climate change that devastated crops and caused famine across the region, forcing large population movements and creating instability. Egyptian records describe attacks by the mysterious Sea Peoples, heavily armed invaders who raided coastal cities. Some believe they caused much of the destruction, others think they were refugees fleeing the same environmental disasters. Egypt barely held them off. The ancient world was also highly interconnected through trade. When major centers like Ugarit and the Hittite Empire collapsed, trade routes for essential resources such as copper and tin broke down, triggering wider economic failure across neighboring civilizations. Internal rebellions, social unrest, and destructive earthquakes further weakened already struggling societies. Many major cities and palaces were violently burned and abandoned. Historians still debate which was the deadliest trigger. The Baalbek Stones in Lebanon are among archaeology's biggest engineering mysteries. The site contains the Roman temple of Jupiter from the 1st century AD, but its massive stone foundation may be far older than the Roman Empire itself. The mystery centers on enormous carved limestone blocks weighing between 800 to over 1,000 tons, far beyond the size of stones normally associated with Roman construction. The Romans were known for documenting their construction projects, yet no records explain who quarried these stones or how they were transported and lifted. The most famous is the trilithon, 3 giant stones weighing around 800 tons each, stacked about 23 feet high. Their joints fitted so precisely that almost no gap exists between them. Mainstream archaeologists argue that large labor forces using wooden rollers, rams, pulleys, and capstans could have accomplished the task over time, possibly building on earlier Phoenician foundations. Others believe the scale and precision suggest the work of an older and more advanced civilization. The mystery also inspired myths involving giants and ancient alien theories. D.B. Cooper was the alias of an unidentified man who hijacked Northwest Orient Flight 305 on November 24, 1971, during a flight from Portland to Seattle. Cooper told the crew he had a bomb and demanded $200,000 and 4 parachutes. After the plane landed in Seattle, the passengers were released and the aircraft took off again toward Mexico City. Shortly after, Cooper opened the rear air stair and parachuted into a remote forested area in southwest Washington during a thunderstorm at night. Despite massive searches, no confirmed remains or parachute was ever found. In 1980, a child discovered $5,800 of the ransom money buried along the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington. The rest of the money was never recovered. The FBI investigated the case for 45 years and examined over 800 suspects before officially giving up in 2016 without ever identifying Cooper. One major suspect was Richard McCoy Jr., who carried out a very similar skyjacking only 5 months later. McCoy was eventually killed in a shootout with FBI agents. Decades later, his children publicly claimed they believed he was D.B. Cooper, but no evidence ever proved it. The sleeping sickness. Between 1917 and 28, a mysterious disease called encephalitis lethargica spread across Europe, North America, and India, affecting over 1 million people and killing an estimated 500,000. The illness confused doctors because of its wide range of symptoms, like extreme exhaustion, fever, headaches, muscle pain, vision problems, psychiatric changes, and Parkinson-like effects. Many victims died from respiratory failure shortly after infection. Of the survivors, nearly half were left totally paralyzed for days or years, while remaining fully conscious and aware of their surroundings. Some could occasionally move their eyes, laugh, or speak, but many appeared frozen like living statues. No one knows what caused the epidemic. One theory suggests a rare mutated strain of Streptococcus bacteria triggered an immune reaction that attacked the brain. Others suspect a virus linked to the Spanish flu. The mystery deepened when the disease suddenly disappeared after the 1920s, only resurfacing in isolated cases decades later, including Europe in the 1950s and China in the early 2000s. A 2004 study of patients with similar symptoms suggests that the illness may still exist in rare forms. To this day, there is no confirmed explanation for where the disease came from, how it spread, why it vanished, or whether it could return again. The Giant of Castelnau. In 1890, French anthropologist Georges Varchet de Lapouge discovered 3 unusually large human bone fragments in a prehistorical burial site at Castelnau-le-Lay, France. He estimated the individual's height at around 11.5 feet, based on the bone size. De Lapouge published his findings, and the story gained international attention. The bones were reportedly examined at the University of Montpellier by medical and zoology experts, who accepted them as human despite their extreme size. De Lapouge concluded they were evidence of a giant race that once lived in southern France during the Neolithic period, possibly alongside Neanderthals. Today, this interpretation is widely rejected. If the bones were truly human, such height would only be possible through severe pathological gigantism, which is medically unlikely at that scale. Another major issue is that the bones have since been lost, so they were never verified with modern methods like DNA testing. No one knows where the bones are. Some critics say the bones were just misidentified large animal bones. Others say it's simply a hoax. Overtoun Bridge near Dumbarton, Scotland, has terrified dog owners since the 1950s. More than 300 dogs have jumped off, falling 50 feet onto the rocks below. Around 50 have died, and some survivors jumped again when brought back to the same spot. What makes it truly bizarre is it mostly happens on clear sunny days. The dogs are almost always long-snouted hunting breeds like collies and labradors, and they nearly always leap from the exact same section of the bridge. One popular theory is that strong scents from animals, like mink, below the bridge trigger overwhelming hunting instincts. Another suggests the bridge's high walls and the foliage below create an optical illusion, making the dogs think they are jumping onto solid ground. But no theory fully explains why this specific bridge drives dogs to leap, while similar bridges nearby don't. Locals even say that the bridge might be haunted. The WOW signal was a radio signal detected on August 15, 1977 by Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope during a search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The signal lasted 72 seconds and stood out because it was unusually strong and narrow band, traits more commonly associated with artificial transmissions than natural cosmic noise. Despite decades of monitoring the same region of space, scientists were never able to confirm its source, and it never happened again. Some astronomers believe it may have come from neutron stars or magnetar energy bursts. Another theory suggested the signal came from radio waves reflected by a passing comet. The possibility that it was a transmission from an alien civilization has remained one of the most famous. The Devil's Footprints. On the nights of February 8th and 9th, 1855, thousands of strange hoof-like tracks appeared overnight across Devon, England, after heavy snowfall. The marks stretched in a perfect single line for 40 to 100 miles, crossing multiple towns and continuing through difficult terrain without breaks or changes in direction. The tracks were especially unusual because they appeared to cross rivers, high walls, and even rooftops, as if the source moved in a straight path regardless of obstacles. Their cloven shape led locals to believe they were linked to the devil. The phenomenon caused widespread fear, with people interpreting it as a supernatural sign or omen. Some suspected animals, such as badgers, otters, hopping mice, or even an escaped kangaroo, though none can realistically explain the straight, continuous path over rooftops and large distances. Others proposed weather anomalies or deliberate hoaxes, while local folklore even blamed an experimental hot air balloon dragging a trailing anchor rope. The incident remains unsolved. Sigiriya is an ancient jungle rock fortress in Sri Lanka's central province, dated to the 5th century AD and often linked to King Kashyapa, who is said to have built it after seizing the throne and fearing retaliation. He allegedly transformed the near vertical rock into a fortified palace, but after his death the site was abandoned. Some say the layout and structure suggest it was a Buddhist monastery, or even a site used for astronomical observation before his rule. The meaning of the vivid frescoes on the western rock remains debated. Interpretations range from queens and concubines to divine celestial beings. The site also contains highly advanced water gardens at its base that reportedly functioned using underground hydraulic pressure systems. The precision and engineering of these systems still baffle modern engineers. Because of its immense scale and the suddenness of its construction, local folklore and Hindu mythology suggest the site was built millennia earlier by the god king Ravana. Its full purpose, origins, and engineering methods remain unclear. Amelia Earhart. On July 2nd, 1937, the legendary pilot Amelia Earhart vanished without a trace over the Pacific Ocean. Along with her navigator Fred Noonan, she was attempting to fly around the world. After taking off from New Guinea, they were heading for a tiny island called Howland. They never made it. In their final radio transmissions, Earhart reported they were lost, low on fuel, and couldn't find the island. Then, silence. The official explanation is that they ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean, but no wreckage has ever been definitely found. One theory is that they landed on the remote coral atoll of Nkumaroro. Over the years, searchers have found possible plane parts, bones, and a woman's shoe. Other theories suggest Earhart may have been on a secret intelligence mission for the US government and was captured by Japanese forces. Decades of high-tech searches using sonar and underwater robots have turned up nothing conclusive. The Utsuro-Bune Incident. According to multiple 19th century Japanese manuscripts, in the year 1803, local fishermen in Hitachi province, now Ibaraki prefecture, spotted a bizarre cocoon-shaped craft washing ashore. The craft was described as 5 meters wide with metal plating, glass or crystal-like windows reinforced with bars, and interior walls covered in unreadable symbols. Inside was a beautiful pale-skinned woman with red hair wearing unfamiliar clothing. She spoke an unknown language and held a sealed wooden box that she refused to let anyone touch. Fearing she might be dangerous or connected to foreign espionage, the villagers eventually placed her back into the vessel and sent it back to sea. Historians say the story is folklore, or a misinterpreted real event, possibly a shipwreck involving a foreign woman during Japan's Edo period, when the country was largely isolated and unfamiliar with outsiders. Some scholars also see it as part of hollow ship mythology, a broader tradition of unusual vessel stories used to explain encounters with unknown people or objects. Despite this, fringe theorists say it's evidence of alien contact or a time travel anomaly. The Antikythera Mechanism is a 2,200-year-old Greek device recovered from a shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera in 1901. It was built around 150 BC and used to predict eclipses, track calendar cycles, and map celestial movements. Made of bronze and filled with complex gears and dials, it's considered the first known analog computer. Its closest technological comparison is medieval mechanical clocks built more than 1,000 years later. Some say the device was connected to Archimedes, but its creator remains unknown. Only about a third of the mechanism survives today, leaving parts of its design open to interpretation. One major mystery is that no other machine of similar complexity from the ancient world has ever been found. We still don't know whether it was a unique masterpiece and why this mechanical technology seemingly disappeared for centuries afterward. It also raises questions about ancient scientific knowledge, since building it required sophisticated understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and mechanics far ahead of its time. Puma Punku is a construction site near Tiwanaku in La Paz, Bolivia, built on a high-altitude plateau in the Andes. It's part of a T-shaped terraced platform with a sunken courtyard and large stone structures, with construction believed to have started after 536 AD by the Tiwanaku civilization. The site is famous for its massive H-shaped blocks, some weighing up to 130 tons, fitted together with extremely precise interlocking joints. Many stones are made of andesite and diorite, very hard materials that are difficult to shape even with modern tools. One major mystery is how these stones were cut and shaped so precisely without iron or steel tools, cranes, or wheeled transport systems. The nearest quarries were also located several miles away across difficult rugged terrain, raising further questions about how the blocks were transported. The ruins are heavily damaged and scattered, as if the site was suddenly destroyed by a major event like an earthquake. While mainstream archaeology attributes the construction to skilled Tiwanaku stonemasons using advanced stoneworking techniques and large labor forces, the precision and scale of the work fuels theories about lost ancient technologies. The tomb of Qinshi Huang, located in Shaanxi Province, China, is a vast mausoleum complex spanning 56 square kilometers that has remained largely sealed and untouched for over 2,200 years. It's described as an underground replica of the emperor's empire, including palaces, officials, and treasures meant to serve him in the afterlife. One of the most famous claims is that the inner chamber contains rivers of liquid mercury, representing China's major rivers, with environmental tests showing unusually high mercury levels in the surrounding soil. The ceiling is also said to be decorated with pearls to mimic a star-filled sky. The site is heavily protected by the famous Terracotta Army, discovered in 1974, but the central burial chamber itself has never been opened. Historical texts also describe possible deadly defenses, like mechanical crossbows that could automatically fire at intruders. Because of these accounts and preservation concerns, archaeologists have avoided opening the main tomb. Legends also claim that many of the craftsmen who built it were buried alive to keep its secrets hidden. The Kailasa Temple at the Ellora Caves in India was built during the 8th century under the Rashtrakuta dynasty, likely during the reign of King Krishna I. It was carved entirely from a single rock cliff, making it the largest monolithic structure ever created. Unlike normal construction, the temple was carved from top downward. Builders had to plan the entire structure in advance, since a single major mistake could have ruined the whole monument. Using only hammers and chisels, workers removed an estimated 250,000 tons of basalt rock to create the complex. However, no debris has ever been found in the surrounding area. The temple contains intricate sculptures, pillars, bridges, multi-story sections, and symmetrical layouts, all showing remarkable understanding of geometry and structural balance. Even though archaeologists have found ancient tool marks and unfinished caves nearby that show how it was built, the sheer scale, perfect planning, and lack of debris still leave experts amazed. How did a team of ancient craftsmen achieve something so monumental with such limited technology? Gallo-Roman Dodecahedrons are small, hollow, 12-sided bronze objects found across Europe, mainly Germany, Britain and France, none in Italy, dated to the 2nd to 4th centuries AD, with over 130 discovered so far. Archaeologists still don't know what they were used for. They vary in size from a golf ball to a tennis ball. Each is similar, yet no two examples are identical. However, no Roman texts, artwork, or records describe them, and unlike many Roman artifacts, they contain no inscriptions, numbers, or symbols explaining their purpose. Most also show little sign of wear, and many were found carefully stored alongside valuable coin hoards in villas or near religious sites. More than 50 theories have been proposed about their use. Some say they may have been knitting tools used to make gloves. Others think they functioned as astronomical or surveying devices for measuring distances or solar angles. More theories suggest they were ceremonial or religious objects, toys, dice, or gambling items. There is still no consensus. The Lost Labyrinth of Egypt is a structure described by multiple ancient writers as an enormous complex surpassing even the pyramids in scale and craftsmanship. According to Greek historian Herodotus, who claimed to have seen it in the 5th century BC, the labyrinth contained 3,000 interconnected rooms and 12 courtyards, filled with carved pillars, hieroglyphs, and white stone columns. For centuries, its exact location remained unknown. Most researchers believe it was built near the pyramid of Pharaoh Amenemhat II at Hawara in the Fayum Oasis, south of Cairo. Modern satellite scans and ground-penetrating radar have reportedly revealed large, grid-like underground formations and structures beneath the area, suggesting that substantial remains may still exist. But excavation and exploration remain heavily restricted, the official reason being flooding from rising groundwater. Some theories suggest the labyrinth served as a vast burial complex protecting the tomb of Amenemhat III and his daughter, while others speculate it may contain lost artifacts, records, or evidence of older civilizations. The true size, purpose, and contents of the labyrinth remain unknown. The Longyou Caves are a network of 24 massive sandstone caverns located in Zhejiang province, China, discovered in 1992 by a local farmer. The caves feature enormous underground chambers with perfectly precise flat walls covered in uniform carved patterns. Some caverns, as big as basketball courts, rise more than 30 meters high with extremely thin walls between chambers, yet builders never accidentally broke through into neighboring chambers. The caves are dated back over 2000 years to the Qin or early Han dynasty, based on pottery fragments found inside. However, no ancient Chinese records clearly describe their construction. A 17th century poem is one of the few historical references. Nearly 1 million cubic meters of rock would have needed to be removed, yet no trace of it has been found. No human remains or major artifacts have been discovered, leaving the creators and purpose completely unknown. The Rongorongo Script is a system of glyphs found on wooden tablets from Easter Island, near Chile. It contains over 400 unique symbols, but it has never been deciphered. When European missionaries documented the tablets in the 1860s, no one on the island could still read them. The knowledge had already been lost, likely because of the decline of the island's priestly and royal classes during disease outbreaks and Peruvian slave raids. Even the origin of the script is unclear. Some evidence suggests certain tablets may date back to the 15th century, raising questions about whether it was developed by the Rapa Nui people or influenced by outside writing systems. Its purpose is also uncertain. Scholars debate whether Rongorongo is a true writing system representing a language or a form of proto-writing used for memory, ritual, or symbolic purposes. With only fragile and incomplete tablets surviving and no confirmed link to a known language, the meaning of Rongorongo remains unknown. The Indus or the Harappan script is a collection of symbols used by the Indus Valley civilization, which existed between roughly 3300 and 1300 BC across modern-day Pakistan and northwest India. Despite being one of the earliest known writing systems, it has never been deciphered. One major issue is the extreme brevity of the inscriptions. Most contain only about 5 symbols. This makes it difficult to identify grammar, sentence structure, or any linguistic patterns. Scholars have not agreed on what language the script represents, with theories suggesting early Dravidian, Indo-European, or even a now lost language. Some researchers question whether it's a true writing system at all, proposing it may have been a set of symbols used for trade, administration, or religion. Despite decades of study, its meaning remains unknown.